Welcome everyone. It is IKYA Live, world news from the spiritual perspective, and the only news program in the world bringing you practical spiritual advice for your everyday life. We are back after our summer holidays. My name is Andy, operations manager here at IKYA Center in Oslo, Norway. And you are live on our YouTube channel, IKYA.official. Subscribe below and be sure to follow us on all social media at IKYA.official on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. Tonight we have a tantalizing, juicy topic that has really heated up over the summer. There were has been a lot happening this summer. So we chose strategically a topic that I think also it kind of stimulates the imagination pretty intensely, because over the summer, if you haven't heard, but you had to have seen it, because CIA and others, there are dozens of government officials, especially in the United States, who have been increasingly publicly discussing interactions with aliens and other extraterrestrial species, UFOs, different objects, all sorts of anomalous events. We've even come up with a new terminology for it, UAP, or unidentified anomalous phenomena. And we had to do that because there's so many of these events happening, and there are so many people openly talking about it now, that it's not just a UFO anymore. So the question before us tonight that IKYA is first going to address to get this conversation started is, with all of this activity over the summer around aliens and extraterrestrials, is it officially official yet that there are aliens and other species from other planets present on the planet? Because, yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean that just because people are talking that it's officially official yet. So that's where we're going to start. But remember that IKYA Live is a conversation. So we need your questions, your comments, your perspective. So if you are online with us on YouTube, please write in your questions or comments, and I will feed them into the conversation with IKYA. And those in the studio audience here, they have a microphone, so they'll also be chiming in throughout the evening. But IKYA, I'm going to turn it over to you with our opening question of, is it actually officially official yet that there are aliens on this planet?
No, not at all. And the challenge is that with the recent hearings in the States, for instance, you have several officials coming forward with their stories and testimonies. The problem is that there is no hard evidence. Right? And people coming forward, not just now, but for the last few decades, are people who are not currently serving. Right? So it's their experiences in the past, saying things, hearsay, this and that, and there's no hard evidence. And of course, it would not be possible for any of these people to, just grab a UFO and bring it home and then bring it to a TV studio, right? You can't do that, and you can't bring any objects, any biological material, whatever it is, you can't. And certainly, if you're still in active service, being a whistleblower like that would probably be considered treason. So you can't, right? So still, no one has been able to produce hard evidence. That being said, you have hundreds and possibly thousands of high-ranking officials all over the world coming forward with the same information and stories and experiences. So obviously, we know that aliens have been part of this culture and civilization forever, but it's not official yet. And this will still take some time. And there are many reasons for that. Number one, there is no interest from governments and entities of power to make it public. The number one reason is that it means that their power will be decimated. right? We need to believe in the story of ourselves, our civilization, and who we are, and our leadership, and our structure, economy, all of that. And the fear is, if this become public knowledge, that we would look to our leaders and bodies of power in a different way. Say, well, you know, the aliens are really the ones in power. So there's a legitimate fear of how this would influence how we see everything. And there have been discussions over the years about how this would influence the world economy, right? People could react thinking that, oh yeah, you know, everything will be fixed. I don't have to work anymore. Technology, yay. And our whole civilization would collapse. So there are a lot of issues around this because remember, humans are not smart, right? We do very irresponsible things with absolutely everything. So it's a matter of like soft launching this. And how that's being done is by combining information with misinformation. This is a technique that governments have always been using, right? So there will be credible information mixed often with efforts that are misleading and can be then exposed as misinformation and lies, then in turn discrediting the credible information and confuse people. So, and then we can still get the point across, right? Also, a lot of sci-fi movies and all of that. Aliens have been involved with that too, behind the scenes. So there's been a lot of things going on behind the curtain for a very, very long time. And it's gotten, like sometimes in our history, recent history, we've gotten to the point where it almost became public. But it's also interesting when that has happened, it's just gone nowhere because it's not part of collective consciousness. So even if it were to become public knowledge, most people would just say, meh, and they would just pretend it's not real. Because that's how we operate as a collective consciousness. Now, the reason for this is that every level of evolution has its own kind of bubble, its own experience, its own reality. And it's just like a child, for instance, you know, when you have a kid, how the child, small child, sees the world and the kind of foundation that this child creates, representing a reality and then understanding how to interact with it, is mostly just bullshit, right? It's just small fragments of things, and then we stitch that together as kids, and then we operate based on that, and we build and we build and we build and we build. So basically what we do with kids, we try to support that building of kind of the brain map of reality by relating to how the child sees the world, right? So when a child, you know, is playing that, you know, he's a nurse, for instance, it's got nothing to do with a nurse in a hospital. And yet, it's the fantasy, right? And as adults, we will be part of that. And the child will feel confident and competent in understanding how the world works. But still, it's a bubble. And so, with small children, we create the story that life is just wonderful. Like everybody, they're all your friends. Everybody got their best interest at heart. Nothing is really dangerous. And that's a nice story to have when you're trying to build the foundational part of your map, that life is good, it's safe. But once the child is able to interact with the world on their own, that understanding can be dangerous, right? It worked while you are in, operating in a controlled environment. But then you're breaking out of it, and then all of a sudden, you have to teach the child that the world is dangerous, right? There are predators out there, right? So, but you don't want to introduce that too early. And it's the kind thing to do because different kind of levels of development requires different understanding of how life works. Humans are children. And, tiny ones, cute and weird, and still learning to walk, still learning to relate to life around them, right? Humans are extremely self-centered. When you look at how self-centered and also speciocentric a life form is, that is basically a giveaway on like how advanced they are, because you can also see in the development of a human child, we start out being the center of the universe, right? Every baby, they need to be extremely self-centered because they can't do anything. So they will have to draw attention. They will have to try to make people around them help them survive. So they're extremely self-centered. They have to be. Empathy comes later. So once you've learned how to survive, then you figure out, oh, okay, I will survive better. I will achieve things by interacting and making other people my friend. I need empathy. I need to give, not just take. So hopefully, as we get older and wiser, we become less and less self-centered. So, looking at human life form, humans are extremely self-centered and have been willing to basically destroy the whole planet and kill off most of the life forms without blinking an eye. That's not an advanced consciousness. So humans are still learning how to function. They can't even manage their own planet yet. So think of the consciousness also having like a protective membrane around it. And what humans are trying to do now is to poke through that membrane and into more advanced consciousness. And that is happening. And it's happening slowly. And many individuals have kind of passed through that membrane, and most people have not. And it's also, for instance, when we look at human history, what is almost mind-boggling to today is the amount of evidence, artifacts, documentation that is basically proving alien interaction and presence on this planet throughout human history. But because it's still among historians and archaeologists, it's just a fact that there've never been a global civilization before this one. Aliens are not real. They don't connect the dots. But when they do, they can see it. And this is expansion of consciousness. Expansion of consciousness is basically connecting more dots and seeing a bigger picture. And then you see things you didn't see before. So the collective consciousness of humans have not reached that point where the consciousness connect the obvious dots. And yet, if you're able to do so, you can like, how can they not see this? But it's like when you, for instance, have artifacts and the cultural expressions around the world, and you just see them separately. You don't try to figure out how they occur, like how are they connected. For instance, one thing that is interesting, when it comes to pyramids, like pyramids have been built all over the world, approximately at the same time. It's not a logical structure to build, right? Think of all the different forms of structures and houses one could build. And yet, approximately at the same time, every culture in the world said, let's build pyramids, right? And there are so many examples of this. They're all over, but because it's an established fact that They're not connected, they can't see it. Because once they see it, they will have to accept, oh, right. Then they need to be able to travel. There have been a lot of things going on. And they will figure it out. But, for instance, when it comes to, the building of the pyramids, because they're saying that, yeah, they only have like hammers and simple tools, they're not looking at what they're looking at. And they can't figure it out because, of course, it was not built that way. These were advanced civilizations, and over time they declined. But they're a lot older, and they were built with advanced technology. Just stuff like that, but aliens have been on this planet forever. So it belongs to a level of consciousness, connecting the dots. So, a few generations from now, dots will have been connected, and human history will have been rewritten. Because at this point, it's a little bit ridiculous, right? Even when they do not produce hard evidence, when you have all these high-ranking officials saying the same thing, and they're all being discredited, and when you say, yeah, they're just making things up, they just want to be in the news. No. It's not likely that all these people all of a sudden go mental and fantasize and then, communicate in the public space. It's not how things work. So at some point, yes, we will connect the dots. And it will happen, and it is happening. People are taking in this information and processing, and then also making up a lot of fantasies and all that. We will get back to that. But we have a question in the audience here.
I seem to remember a while back you explaining planet Earth as being a love project, and that there are many beings who are assisting but not interfering.
Yep.
And I'd love to hear you say more about that, if you could, please.
Yeah. Now, the thing is that many people ask me, why aren't you more involved? And my answer is, if we weren't involved, humans would still be trying to figure out how to get down from the trees. This is a project involving many different cultures because it's how we do it. Just like for humans, why do you want to garden? If you have a house, if you have a home, why do you want to garden? Why do you want to plant flowers? There's no need for it, right? But yet we're drawn to create life, create expressions. And it's that. It's part of being co-creative, and it's part of us. So all life forms are drawn to create beauty, to experiment with life. And this whole planet is this type of project. And many cultures have been involved. This is also why one had so many different varieties of kind of humans in the beginning, developing separately in different parts of the world. So it's not like they all came from Africa. And as they study this further, one will see that separate versions of kind of humanoid life forms developed all over the planet. So different cultures had their own little kind of space where they experimented on these monkey-like, beginnings of humans. And then one just saw who was better at surviving. And it's all about supporting life and creating vehicles one can incarnate into. Because everybody understands that it's simply life expressing itself. It's atmas souls needing places and different ways to incarnate, and especially for themselves. So I've always said that the alien invasion is actually happening. It's individuals who incarnate from different planets coming here to have this experience. Because what humans are really good at is being irrational, being very emotional, and the emotional body in the human is fascinating because it's completely nuts and wonderful. It's a lot of colors, but remember, when you have an intelligent life form, they do not have emotions in the same way humans do. And many of you who are also here, coming from other planets, it never fails that you all get so shocked by how the human emotional body operates. So you can feel that you understand a lot and you know how to operate, and then boom, your emotions are just like all over the place because you're not used to them. And the human spectrum is more coarse than you will find in more advanced life forms. So part of developing the human life form and this civilization is about offering a way to balance one's karma. It's like, think of, as a life form becomes more advanced, they get more refined. So you can work on like finer aspects of things, but you don't get to work on your basement. You don't get to work on your coarser karma, and that can cause imbalances as well. And everybody knows this. So humans were developed to be able to work on the lower aspects of one's karmic spectrum, which is wonderful. But it also means that for that to happen, you need a deeply irrational life form with a lot of emotions and the ability to be triggered and do things in a fascinating state of disconnect from everything, just like, I want to do that, you know, because when you are a more evolved being, you understand too much. You're able to navigate using kind of better maps, and you understand, which means also that you don't let life trigger you and you can control too much of your karmic journey. So everybody is wanted kind of humans to develop. We're still part of the same kind of genetic family of these life forms. Because remember, there's so many life forms and so many places to incarnate that they're not all relevant for this planet and vice versa. We have been developed as part of a kind of group of life forms that find that they were lacking this spectrum. And humans are wonderful in representing that spectrum. So more and more individuals are incarnating directly from these cultures, and many of you who are watching are part of that journey. More and more people recognize that I'm not from here. No, because you're not. And we need to appreciate the human expression and truly love all the like weirdness of the human, because this is also how we access a lot of karma that we may have forgotten. That, you know, aspects of our karma that we didn't really dive into because we were too good at what we're good at. This is also why it can be so frustrating to be human. And many of you have the experience of, I know what I'm doing, and then there is this part. Right? When you have that, that's one of the signs we can recognize that, yeah, you're really coming from somewhere else and you have incarnated because of that spectrum. And it feels like I'm in my flow, I know what I'm doing, but this part. And that's what we need to love. That's what we need to appreciate, because that's what the human life form is offering. But historically, what we need to do is to lift the life form and culture, because the primitive ways of this culture is destroying the planet. And now we're coming to this breaking point where more and more individuals from other planets are incarnating as humans. That's when a big shift will happen, and it is happening. And it's up to all of you who identify with and understand that you're coming here from other cultures to do something about it. Then we need to work out the coarser karma, because by doing so, we're actually lifting the human life form. So that's why it's happening now. You have enough consciousness and intelligence to be connected to a higher state of being, but you still have the basement. So it's a collective effort from all of you incarnating from different planets now to access that in yourself and to accept your course of karma, to really work on it, because that will have an effect on the human life form, and to lift that consciousness once and for all. Right? So it's all a group effort, and it's wonderful and it's fun.
So first, our amazing colleague here, IKYA, our sound expert, he wonders, there's a ton of historical documentation about open alien contact and almost assistance, for example, with the Egyptians and other older cultures. Why did it stop? Like, how did we collectively kind of forget about that? Or was it a deliberate effort to sort of cut that connection with our fellow species?
Humans forget very easily. Most of you can't even remember what you did last week. So when there is a change, that's who we are, and that's what we do now. I've explained before that each cycle of civilization on this planet, and this is the third civilization and the fourth wave, meaning that there have been whole cycles in big civilizations before. It's been about incarnating the human life form into the full potential of disconnect. When you look at how the human mind operates, it's in a fascinating state of disconnect, right? Believing that we could just do anything without consequences. Most people really don't care about others. They only care about how others can be useful to them. They don't care about this planet, other life forms, right? People, if you look at kids, right, they can kill insects because they're bored. We are not naturally empathetic. That's something we have to learn. This is why we have basically destroyed the planet, because we want cheap shit. And we destroy the planet, meh, I'll just buy my water at the supermarket. It's that. We're completely nuts. And that's been a goal, because through disconnect comes creativity. And I explained this before, and it sounds strange until you actually get it. When you have life forms and civilizations that are very much in harmony with nature, they hardly ever evolve, because everything works and you just listen to nature and you become part of it. So you simply become a very advanced tree, right? It's because you're always listening to nature and adapting to it, so there will be very little innovation, because why would you need it? You need disconnect to stimulate innovation. So the point of this human life form is to then stimulate creativity and innovation and all development of potentials through disconnect. Because you need to be disconnected in order to be self-centered enough to see, okay, I want to do this, I want to do that. And then you begin to do that. You begin to use your creativity and apply it because you think you can, and you don't listen to anyone. Look at human ambition. I want to go to the top, and you don't care how many people you step over or kill, because I need to go to the top. It's that. And that is wonderful to a certain extent. So the human life form as a project is about that, unfolding a different type of creativity, kind of built on self-centeredness and the potentials within the individuals, and see how one can use that, and then learn how to do it in harmony with nature in that order, because often we do it the other way around and then innovation stops. With the human life form, that has happened before. So part of having these different cycles of civilizations have been about increasing the level of disconnect for each time. And this is the most disconnected humans have ever been, at the same time, the most creative and innovative. And now we reached a point in our civilization where the two will have to meet. The innovation will have to be connected to empathy. and seeing the bigger picture, right? But now we believe in ourselves. Now we believe in human ingenuity and creativity. And now we can use it to understand nature and to heal it. Because that's how you learn to truly not only nurture a planet, but to seed it, to start it, to build it. So humans will over time develop an enormous expertise in how to balance an ecosystem, how to balance many different life forms, and develop an enormous respect and empathy for all life. And then you have the detailed expertise and competence. So that's the long-term goal with this life form, because this is what many of you already have within you, and you know it. You have a sense of balance and also the empathy thing and how things should be balanced. But you don't have the detailed knowledge. So that is what's being developed in this civilization and the human life form. And the future for humans are absolutely wonderful and amazing. Mm-hmm.
So we've talked earlier that why the heck, if this is true and they're here and the future's bright, why the heck not just, throw the doors open and walk into the universities and start teaching courses and walk into the UN and start, assisting with leading the planet. It seems like we could just really push through this whole catastrophe that's unfolding with the climate and the planet collapsing. Wouldn't that work a lot more easily?
Yes, but that's not the point. The point is to build competence and consciousness, and it has to be cultured. Now, it's like, I've explained this when it comes to karmic work, that doing someone's homework and just giving them the answers, yeah, they can pass the test, but they haven't learned anything. And the point is not to pass the test, it's to learn something, to build skills, to build intelligence and knowledge. And with humans, we've seen so many times that when they're given too much, they're not able to grow from it. Humans are experts at weaponizing everything. Absolutely everything. And yes, also in recent history, there have been a lot of interaction between beings from other cultures and human governments. And it's always ended up in the same ways, like, how can we turn this into weapons? So there's always a balance between trying to assist humans and understanding that they have to go through their journey of consciousness. So it's more about trying to facilitate, right? And try to inject a little bit here and there so that the human journey can go in a certain direction. But at this point still, you can imagine if suddenly, there were aliens walking around, they would be killed very quickly. Humans are deeply racist by nature. Think of, it wouldn't last long. Humans would make up so many conspiracy theories, and think of what religious people would do. When you have aliens, basically then proving that all your religions are bullshit and made up, that would be quite provoking. So religious extremism would explode. It would be just very, very difficult. So when aliens are on this planet, they work differently. When it's trying to then transfer sometimes both technology, for instance, humans learned how to grow stuff and farm from aliens. As you can see also in human history, all of a sudden, boom, it happened. And it happened quickly. When you have these abrupt changes, it doesn't happen by itself. It's because someone enters the space and teaches humans how to do these things. So there have been phases where aliens have been more directly involved. But at this point, we see that humans are still so aggressive that it's dangerous. It would be dangerous for the individuals involved, and it has been tried. It's better to work in the background and also work with governments, because that is also happening. The problem still is that governments are obsessed with being a government. And humans, at least now, have lost the greater good, the focus on the greater good that humans used to have a few generations ago. It's gone. Everything is about power. It's about dominance. So whenever something is available, someone will say, how can I grab onto that and hold that and use it for my own benefit? Whether it's power or money or whatever it is. Humans don't think about, wow, this is something I can be, the instrument of. I can bring this to the world and uplift everyone. Humans are not like that anymore, for now. So one has to be very careful. And there is an understanding that humans will just have to go through what they need to go through, and it's being facilitated. But knowing that this is both a painful part of the journey, but also the part where the human consciousness is able to penetrate that membrane and start connecting more dots, which means then you can see things more clearly, and then you can find solutions. Because then already human creativity has reached a high point. Meaning that once you connect more dots, immediately you will begin to innovate based on that. So it's a completely natural process, and it is happening.
We have a question from Elizabeth in the audience.
You mentioned something about you mentioned something about movies and alien representation or whatever in movies, and that they're actually participating in that. And I just came to think of this movie that I saw a couple of years ago. I can't exactly remember the name, but it's about this lady she's a translator, and she translates, like, there's some aliens coming, and she's working as a translator to Arrival, exactly, yeah. And I remember seeing that movie, and I'm not big on sci-fi, because usually I find it I just don't associate with it. But it was very touching, and I also felt the storyline had some kind of logic to it that was quite intelligent. And then I also came to think of movies like Contact, for example, or The Abyss, more like classic somehow. But it's again, it's the alien representation in those movies are kind of like, is it like slowly feeding crumbles that this is a nice presence, or?
Well, I think I'm personally aware of certain productions where there have been alien consultants, because there are many different bodies of power and interest on this planet, and that's not conspiracy. It's just like, people are members of all sorts of clubs, right? People like to create little tribes and groups, and people have different interests, and they come together. So also when seeing movies as a way to influence the collective consciousness, right? That's something everyone can understand. And then you would also say that, yeah, people who have the ability, or groups, right, who have the ability to do that, will also sometimes use that medium as a way to try to educate the collective consciousness. So it's just that, right? So sometimes that happens. Most of the times it does not. But it depends, like who's involved and how certain productions come into being. But it's not common, but it happens. It's the same thing with politics and business. Sometimes there are aliens involved, but for the most part, aliens are just kind of observing it from afar, right? And sometimes there are interactions here and there, and sometimes humans are not even aware of that communication being alien. And also influencing people through the collective mind, like through the subconscious, through dreams, through all of that. And giving people impressions and instructions, that's quite common. And so that's the more normal way for also aliens to communicate with humans. It's just, if you can think of like, now humans have also developed satellites, right, that can influence our brains and nervous system. Okay, if you think of cultures being more advanced and maybe having a more loving attitude, right? Think of that type of technology being more advanced than being able to send out signals that will produce certain chemicals, that will produce certain ways of thinking and attitudes over time, right? And also going in and producing specific thoughts, specific feelings, specific ideas. So it's this thing with how the collective consciousness works. I mentioned this before, but you've seen several times that people, like in the old days, around the world could basically invent the same thing the same week, right? Which should not be able to happen, but it's because it's then vibrating in the collective consciousness and then you can pick it up. This is the most common way that aliens assist and try to inject both information and technology. It's not through showing people technology. It's working with where people are at and then trying to create kind of a pathway by introducing certain ideas, certain principles, right? So people can just say, oh, this is how it works. So in the world of physics, it's then realizing that certain things work certain ways, right? And introducing that information in the collective consciousness, and then someone will pick up on it. So this is the most common way that aliens are influencing, right? It's not needed that they come with a piece of technology, because it has to be invented based on the collective consciousness, right? So it's a little bit more sophisticated and more natural, right? So this is why, again, they do not need, for the most part, to interact physically with humans at all. It happens more through the subconscious, through kind of subtle injection of vibration and information.
Okay, we're going to jump to a question from YouTube. Vision Talks, speaking of the power structure, Vision Talks asks, who's running the world really? Aliens, BlackRock, Vanguard? Is it State Street, families owning the central banks, dark interdimensional beings? Who actually is running this planet?
That's an excellent question and a fun one, because if we say, like, who runs nature? The lions would say, we run it. The trees would say, we're running it. Bacteria would say, we're running it. Insects will say, like, we're running the planet. Everybody will say we're running it because it's an ecosystem. When you have, remember that besides life forms, and as we know, there are millions of different life forms on this planet. Within a species, you can also have different pockets of consciousness, just like we have different professions, different belief systems, different ways of being human. When you create these different entities, it's simply a variation of the human consciousness and human expression. It's still part of the ecosystem. So when you have, for instance, a big company being very powerful, it cannot exist unless it represents something that is part of the consciousness of humans. So even when you have, a powerful person like a dictator, the dictator is actually not running anything, because power is only real when someone is giving away their own authority. No one can take authority from you, you can only give it away. So when you voluntarily give away like your own authority to someone else and say, like, please rule over me. That's the power this individual has. A company becomes powerful because we buy their products or whatever. And then they simply represent an energy, a consciousness, something that is then part of human evolution. And of course, we have a lot of these different entities representing, just like in our own minds and our brains, we have a whole, arsenal of different characters, different versions of ourselves, right? So if you can think of that, you may have your party version, and you may have your like home with mommy version, and your work version, and your sexual version, all of that. Think of that, we as humans, we externalize that. So we create different arenas, spaces, companies, this and that, and everything, so that we also can gravitate together when we have the same vibration, information, and karmic studies. So all of these entities are absolutely necessary and part of a natural ecosystem. Nobody is running nature, which means these companies, yeah, they can do this or that, ooh, be all powerful. Not very impressive, because in an ecosystem, nobody is powerful. Because in an ecosystem, everybody's needed. It's the same thing in the human body. If we removed your bacteria and all the different little kind of life forms living in your body, you would die within a couple of seconds. So who's in charge of your body? Nobody's in charge. It's one organism of life. We just fill different functions because we need to experience life from all angles. When someone is operating based on a certain assumption or a certain belief, it could also be them being all powerful, whatever, that is needed. It's simply different perspectives where we can incarnate part of ourselves, incarnate our own consciousness in many different ways, because you do not only incarnate through your own body. You incarnate through the brands you subscribe to. Whatever interest you've got, and there is a body for that, you incarnate through that too. And this is why companies can become powerful, because we incarnate through them. Like, look at Apple or Tesla or companies that people feel they belong to or that they like, whatever. They become an extension of our own structure of incarnation. So all of this is necessary, and nobody's running anything, because nature in and of itself is the being. And just to put it into perspective, this is one planet. Now, based on the Hubble telescope, right, when we look at the Milky Way, the galaxy that we're part of, I say that it's about 100 billion stars, all containing at least 2 to 3 planets, right? So there's hundreds of billion stars and planets in this galaxy. Now, based on the latest observations, they're saying that there are probably more than 2 trillion galaxies. 2 trillion. All containing hundreds of billions of stars and planets. So when we do some simple math, if we look at all of these, hundreds of billions of planets just in our galaxy, and say, well, maybe there are just intelligent life on a few of them. Good. It means we're still talking about trillions and trillions of planets and cultures with intelligent life. And then we haven't even began to talk about interdimensional existence, which quantum physics has now proven to be a fact, which means that if we use the quantum theory, that can be even bigger. So you're talking trillions and trillions, in trillions of dimensions, like nobody is running it. Life is what it is. You incarnate many places. This is just like an atom. You incarnate all over. and you wouldn't be interested in being ruled by anything. You incarnate where you can learn the most in the perspectives that will trigger your own karma and your own learning. And we choose that voluntarily. Nobody's running anything. Everybody's consumed by their own karma and their own studies, no matter what perspective they need. Sometimes we need to incarnate as a Mother Teresa, and sometimes we need to incarnate as a Trump. Sometimes we need to incarnate as a Hitler, or like, you know, an average person, you know, Becky at Walmart is like all of this. And it's all valid and important. Nobody's running anything. We are just in different positions to experience ourselves. There are endless possibilities, endless places and life forms and cultures to incarnate. And we're all over. We have the freedom to go and to incarnate wherever we want to. This planet and this life form was developed because a lot of cultures wanted to do that. They saw the potential. They could see the pathway and what could be done here and what type of karma, what type of spiritual studies could be developed. And we are studying. This is why we're not all doing the same thing. We do not belong to the same type of consciousness, the same beliefs, the same sense of reality, the same purpose, the same expressions. Some people are consumed by power. Well, let them have it so they can experience how that is limiting. They can see then the full scope of what that is doing. And they figure out, oh, that was fucking stupid. Power does not exist. It's a child's game. Nobody is running it. All of life is one organism of consciousness. It's absolute singularity expressed through all there is. And we're part of it. Mm-hmm.
We've got quite the queue. Let's go to the studio audience first.
Well, now my head is spinning from
Good.
all the trillions that you're talking about. But back to what Elizabeth said about that film Arrival. One of the things that struck me was it was about language.
Mm-hmm.
And it was about how ill-prepared humans were to actually speak with another life form. And one of the things that I've enjoyed working with you over the years has been exploring how we communicate with other life forms and how we have to learn so much. And I was just curious how you see those two things fitting together.
Like, I try to teach humans to learn the most fundamental ways of communication, which humans have not discovered yet. And it's very simple. All life forms are basically using the same language and are kind of susceptible to both receiving and sending. So most life forms on this planet are part of a communication that humans are not part of because humans are in a state of disconnect. But it's using one's senses and turning them around. So if you can think of using your intuition and telepathy and all of that, but you create spaces of imagery containing a lot of information, you transfer that. All life forms are doing that in different ways. It's the same thing, for instance, when you communicate with an animal. It's not like when you talk to a dog that they necessarily construct sentences and know words, because they don't. But they're able to sequence different positions in their own minds and emotions, like and so that they can construct meaning. Just like you're able to feel and think without words. And we can all interpret that. So when we learn to receive that and we are able to filter that through our own brain, all of a sudden we can hear it. So most aliens, they will do the same. But the funny thing is that often when humans are exposed to aliens, because humans know nothing, they do it for them. So most will hear a voice in their head, which is basically this type of communication, but very projected, and they then kind of filter it through that person's brain so the person can hear it. Normally, this is something that we will learn, so we can pick up. So it will be an active state, but everybody knows that humans have not gotten to that point yet, so they need a little help. But yes, we can all learn how to do this, and it's not even difficult. It's difficult for humans because it's not part of the culture, but it's already part of human genetics. Remember, human genetics are partly alien. So once we learn how to do this, our brains can grow into this type of communication, and it means that if you were to meet an alien, you could communicate with that individual. And still, communicating with other life forms on this planet also is very interesting, because everybody enjoys being listened to, and humans are infamous for not listening to anyone or anything. So most life forms are very surprised when humans actually listen. And that is something I think we also need to learn as part of starting to change our brand as a life form when it comes to other life forms on this planet, because our brand is not good, people. And listening and being able to actually communicate for real, I think that's basic politeness. Mm-hmm.
All right, we'll take one from YouTube. Andreas asks about recent alleged crashes, retrievals of unknown technology, that kind of thing. I think there was one in Las Vegas recently where a ship crashed in somebody's backyard, and the aliens came out and tried to get away using a car or something.
Yeah, it was a truck.
Hilarious.
Yep.
Yeah, and so Andreas asks, why the heck would a higher neutral intelligence allow extremely advanced technology to crash right into the hands of a warlike species like us? It seems rather irresponsible and even manipulative from a geopolitical perspective, of course.
Yes.
What do you think?
These things happen. Remember that there are a lot of alien cultures here. Humans are really fascinating for all the wrong reasons, but also we're just like a fascinating life form, because it's a life form that is on the cusp of gaining consciousness. And by that, I mean beyond self, preservation and general survival. And humans do a lot of very strange things, and it's fascinating. So we're basically being swarmed, and it's under administration. There are certain cultures that have a sense of ownership to this planet because they've been part of developing this life form, so like it's ours, right? So they feel very protective, and so we are being protected. But remember that they're trying to avoid tourism, but there is an aspect of that also when sometimes when individuals and vehicles come here. It's just this is interesting. And sometimes, just like with human technology, far away from home and you don't have spare parts, sometimes things happen, right? And there have been more crashes than one would imagine. There have been a lot of them. And yes, governments around the world have so many vehicles. And a lot of individuals, dead individuals, whatever. It's quite common. These are one of the things I think over time it will be revealed. It was sort of like, what? But at that point, humans will say, we all knew it, so it will not be big news. And I think even now, when, for instance, this thing happened in Las Vegas, it's like, yeah, it should be the cover story all over the world, but it wasn't. It was just like a fun thing. And again, like, it's more the fun part of thinking the aliens trying to run away in a truck, right? That's what caught our attention, not the fact that there were aliens landing in someone's backyard and the whole neighborhood could see it. That was not really what caught our attention. So it's that, But yes, there is a lot of irresponsible behavior from aliens as well. It's trying to be managed, but remember that we are fun. We are like an amusement part of a silliness. So a lot of alien cultures find this planet to be interesting, and also because it's fun to see, like, are we going to destroy it, or are we going to find our way, right? So of course we are attracting so many cultures at this point, and it's difficult to keep them away, right? So if we didn't have some of these cultures protecting the planet, it would definitely be out in the open because they would be everywhere. And sometimes when you have cultures who haven't been here before, they will not necessarily have that respect because they're just curious, right? And they may not be that advanced. So they just, I can just go there and do things and, you know, do some probing. But it's not always a smart thing to do. So there is a huge effort keeping most of them away.
Speaking of probes, why are anal probes so popular among the alien species? And like, is that really the best way to study us?
I know. It's like they're coming from the other side of the universe to stick their fingers up our butts. That's fascinating. Again, you would think that they have access to DNA technology and a strand of hair would do the same thing, but no. It's obviously more interesting to explore our butts. But, you know, it's like there will always be a lot of that because people fantasize and they can have all sorts of experiences, and you have these kind of states in between sleep and being awake where a lot of things can happen, and also the brain can imagine a lot of things. I would say that aliens do probe, but it's basically normally they take samples. There have been a lot of incidents, you know, where animals around the world have been found basically like skin and bones or whatever, because they take what they need to have both DNA and information, because it's interesting to go to a different planet and look at the life forms there. So many people have disappeared. That happens. There are a lot of tests. You know, they can draw blood or whatever, and there's a lot of that. And many people have been abducted. When they tell their stories, they're telling the truth, but unfortunately, they're mixed in with a lot of people who have emotional and mental disorders. Back to the disinformation thing, it's difficult for people to distinguish between a genuine experience and people are just making things up because they want attention. But that being said, aliens have always been involved. They've always been kind of tracking humans. They've been performing experiments on the human life form, and it's still ongoing. It's just part of the human journey. So yes, many people who have been abducted, they're telling the truth. Although there are also many who just make things up. But there's very little fingering in the butthole.
All right, we have a question from Maria in the audience here.
Yeah, I have several questions actually. I was just wondering both which race have had this kind of main responsibility for the human evolution. Is that like just one race, or are there more? And
Several.
where do they come from? Because that's also something that's also talked about a lot, like playouts and different kind of star constellations.
Yes.
And also, what are the potential for the human evolution? And you also mentioned about several are incarnating here also as from other cultures, and they have that feeling of kind of I'm in a way in a wrong place, like I don't fit in here, and how can also those work with this, like
if we start with that part, because it's really fascinating. The reason why this can happen is because among humans that vibration has changed. Now, when you look at the amount of people migrating and moving around, right, we have become more diverse, right? That breaks up the story that being human is one thing, right? Because when you have like one culture, one race, living in one area, they believe that this is how, this is what a human is. And it's very difficult then to penetrate that and to expand, because they don't want to. They want to preserve themselves. So what's happened through migration and globalization is that that is kind of breaking up, which means that we can expand faster. So because of that change, it's now easier for what you would call aliens to incarnate as humans, because we're all now more used to diversity in many different ways to be human. So that opens the space, right, and makes it easier. So that's also why it's happening now. And there are now millions and millions of people on this planet incarnating directly from other planets. We all come from somewhere, right? But instead of kind of most people kind of reincarnating and being in a cycle of incarnations on this planet, now more and more from this kind of family of life forms are incarnating on this planet, because that's been the plan all along. And there have been kind of waves where that's been happening when it has been interesting. So also back to the question, like if there's one or several races, there have been several cultures, all from this galaxy. So it's basically a galaxy is also considered to be a family. So within that, because that's basically our home, our habitat. And the different life forms, when they reach a certain level of intelligence and evolution, and they can travel, they will then discover other life forms, and there you go. So there's been many different cultures involved with developing humans. This is also why there were different versions developed based on different DNA. So there are still many different cultures involved. It will continue to stay that way, because they're so integrated into the human journey. And again, they have a sense of ownership to this planet. So that's just how it is. And humans will discover this also and make it official, probably within the next 200 years or so. The potential for this planet is this life form will become not only interplanetary, but intergalactic at some point. Humans will, through also alien contact, become used to life on different planets, and humans will also establish colonies on other planets, and in turn also help seeding different planets and be part of building gardens, because that's what you do. So that's a natural potential. And again, the interesting thing is humans believe that once you reach a certain level, you're just like humans, but you have more technology and higher intelligence. The thing is, when you have a higher intelligence, there are a lot of things humans do that you simply don't do anymore. Now, part of being more intelligent is that you have more empathy. And it's not a feeling. It's like when you understand more about how things work and how life works, you understand your place in it and you behave accordingly, which means you become more constructive. You become more objective, and you can see how this organism of life always moves, always changes, always wants to unfold, and you will become an aware part of that, which means your intentions become clearer and more positive. You stop behaving aggressively. You stop going to war. You stop all of that, because you understand what life is about. So it also means that humans will, over time, grow out of all that aggression, all that self-centeredness, and learn to be of use. Learn to say, what can we do to bring love, to bring beauty, to bring growth. And it will start with this planet. At some point, when humans have started building colonies, what will happen to this planet, and this is something that's been foreseen by many of the cultures coming here, they all say the same thing, that this planet will then be restored, and it will become a monument representing the journey of humans, and humans will then come to this planet to see where they came from, but also to see that beauty. So if you can think of this planet becoming a huge kind of national park, a protected planet where it's all about creating balance and letting all life forms flourish in balance, so where that becomes the point of it, and people then can come here to stay and to visit for a while, but there will be kind of fewer people living here because the human civilization will have moved on. But this will then become an absolutely beautiful, beautiful planet. So that's a natural kind of part of human history and the kind of pathway that has been chosen.
We have another question in the audience.
Okay, so the aliens have kind of mixed our genes and created us, and that's really fascinating. But I was kind of wondering, have they done the same with plants and foods to sort of, okay, how can we give most nutrition to humans in different parts? Could you explain a bit more about that?
Absolutely. Again, especially when kind of farming was introduced, they also modified kind of food, plants, and animals and all of that to make that whole process move forward. Now, in these type of processes, there's always an element of experimentation, because it's a different planet and you just do stuff and see what can work. So you will try, because remember also, just like we know today, if you make a life form in the lab and place it out in nature, it can fuck up the whole ecosystem, right? So you have to work with the ecosystem and then try to enhance things, right? So these are, like, most of this culture are extremely skilled. They've done this before. So you also know that you have to kind of work with accelerated evolution. That's really what we're talking about here. It's not making any abrupt changes like we do today with the GMO and stuff like that. It's not like that. It's accelerated evolution, which basically means that you see a potential in a plant or a life form. If stimulated in a certain way, it simply means that a direction of evolutionary kind of change can be prompted. So you can make that happen in a very short time, but then it will be adapted to its current ecosystem, right? And this is also what humans are slowly learning, but this is how it's done.
Okay, do you have any examples of plants that are like, have come from further back and are like
grains?
Yeah.
For instance, it's even when you look at like cows, when you look at, like, there are a lot of what we eat. There's even been manipulation to fish in this phase, because remember that when this was done a very long time ago, and it's been done in different waves. Because again, the first civilization didn't go too well because humans were too in tune with nature, which means, again, very little innovation. So what humans were given, they just used that and then nothing, right? That's the problem. And it's better then to increase the ego and lower the connectedness. So I can do this, and that's been the project. So, but there was a phase, especially when what's called the Anunnakis were very active. They were extremely active in after, especially the kind of big flood on this planet. So several thousand years ago, they were very active in kind of rebuilding, and then building the kind of foundational parts of this current civilization. And that included farming, manipulating plants and animals and all of that. So both giving people tools and insights and how-tos, and traveling around the world and teaching people how to do this. So that was very organized. So people then had access to how to do things more efficiently, because the plan was, after that kind of great cataclysm, there were very kind of few humans left. So they wanted to scale things up very quickly, right? And then you need food, you need tools, you need all of that, and instructions on how to really, build and grow fast. So that's what they did. So they've certainly been very active in this cycle of civilization in doing a lot of engineering, and also, again, teaching people how to succeed.
Okay, we've got a question from Martina in Germany, more on the spiritual aspect. How can aliens support us in our spiritual development, and what should we pay particular attention to in order to achieve some kind of co-creation with extraterrestrials?
I think, number one, their job is, for the most part, not to help us spiritually. There are other entities for that. They developed the human life form so they can incarnate into the human life form. So, what we can do is to not only be aware of this, but to also think of this and open yourself up to that communication, because it's fun. There is alien communication available on this planet at all times, and listen to what is it that they are kind of injecting and sending into the collective consciousness. Because when you focus on it, and when we do these things, it will be a lot of your own imagination, fantasy, and all that. When you work with this over years, you will be able to filter out a lot of what you are creating through your own imagination, what's actually there. That's something that you can learn. But when you then work with the kind of alien presence on this planet, you will be able to identify that there is a kind of certain spectrum where they are influencing the collective human mind. So one can pick up on what is it that, like, they as a presence want to kind of inject into the human pathway, right? Because, as I said, this is how they mostly interact with humans. It's just to very being a very subtle presence, being able to create thoughts and ideas and concepts and basically draw humans in a certain direction. And this is what we can learn to pick up on. And also just be happy, be loving, because they are. They do this from love, not because they have to. This is not, oh, let's conquer the universe. It's like, no, it's not how it works. When you build the most beautiful, beautiful garden, I want to conquer this piece of land. It's not what it is about. So what we can learn from them is that love and that presence. And think of also, they've been developing this life form for almost 1 million years. Right? And most people, when they try to grow flowers, they get impatient after a few weeks. Try to think of that focus. And being part of something greater than yourself. Because then you're taking part in something, and you know that in your lifetime, very little will happen, but you know that's how it is. So when you take part in developing a planet, and some of these alien life forms, they live, some of them can live for more than 1,000 years or whatever, but it's still relatively short when you think of millions of years. But think of that dedication, that longevity and focus. Because it's not about, oh, let's create a human, and it's about the journey. It's about understanding that all life is basically about working out karma, growing into potentials in our consciousness. It's not about moving matter around, right? So creating this planet and developing it has been about giving as many different variations of consciousness as possible the opportunity to find expressions and journeys here, and seeing it happening and loving it and being part of it and really nurturing it. And if you think of developing a garden for 1,000,000 years and being there as a culture, just think of that level of dedication and love and how much they care. And looking at humans, whenever they get the chance, they try to destroy themselves, destroy everyone, kill, kill, kill. You're right? And they still just, okay, this is just the tantrum phase, right? We'll just breathe and we'll just, you know, just like when your kids are having tantrums, you want to kill them, but you also love them, and you just know they will grow out of it, right? But it's that. They are our family. They are us and we are them. They are here only because of love. This is also why they are protecting the planet from tourists, you know? And everything they do is part of continuing to develop this planet, and try to connect with that. And try to listen to what is it that we can do as humans, because we're in this life form, to take part in lifting this life form and becoming more advanced, right? Because that is the big task at hand. It's for humans to become adults, to grow out of this, in a way, horrible, harmful, selfishness. And all these that we talked about, all these kind of power games and destruction and how we exploit each other. And just as I mentioned, there are more slaves in the world now than ever, right? We're still that primitive, right? And we attack each other and try to find things to criticize each other for, instead of finding our strength and figuring out, how can I nurture you? How can I assist you in becoming your very best? Humans have now retreated into this, just trying to find something we can attack, right? Try to be better. Try to be a presence of love. Try to see yourself as someone visiting this planet and coming here because you love the potential and you appreciate the opportunity to grow faster than you can do anywhere else. And treat every day as special. Because it is. Being in this life form is such a privilege. And it's a lot of fun. And especially everything about being in this life form that is strange and weird and, you know, frustrating and everything. It's just magnificent. Because when you know this is a monkey suit that you're wearing, it's not you. It gives you filters and ways of operating that it's wonderfully strange. Appreciate it. Explore yourself through this life form or through this culture, but always try to lift, always try to heal, always try to give love. Because that's how we can lift this life form. That's how we can lift this planet. And that's also when the alien cultures can begin to communicate with us more directly. Often, you know, they will express that it's a little bit like when we roll our eyes, God, are they still like that? You know, sometimes it happens through kind of organization or government bodies of whatever it is that humans interact with aliens, and often it's very, very difficult to bring humans out of their mindset, because humans don't understand that life is one. That the foundation for everything is love. They always need to understand, humans, like, why do we need to, how can we, what are we supposed to do with this, and how can we conquer the world with this, and how can we, instead of just, it's an expression of consciousness on this planet. it's how we express our love to assist life to find new potentials, right? And it's difficult to make humans understand this. And often it's so funny because I've had so many communicating with me saying also, you know, when they try to show humans, they basically, they shut down. Because what they show is so foreign to the human brain and the human body that often they will simply faint. Because they're trying then to communicate the fuller picture of the purpose and what this journey is about, and the human brain cannot compute because it's simply not advanced enough. So, but what it is about is this, as I say, just think of you having a passion for a garden, right? Where you simply grow things because you can, because you want to see the beauty, and you feel wonderful just seeing, you know, following a little flower from day to day, and you get so excited, right? When that tiny flower starts to, you know, unfold. It's that. Every little step that humans make are being applauded and being watched and supported and nurtured. And at the same time, we know that humans have to go through what they need to go through. They have to go through all the tantrums. And sometimes small kids, you know, they will destroy things, they will break things, they will scream and yell. And you always know that they will move past it. And this is why one does not interfere. But it's the parenting, if, you know, the human life form is being facilitated and helped. It's been 1 million years of investment, and it's continuing. But now, more and more aliens are incarnating and taking part in it. And this is what will also cause the kind of great shift over time. And it's a lot of fun. And I see so many individuals coming directly from other cultures because I can see it in their structure. Like, the kind of energy coming out of a body is slightly different. And it's very easy to see, and it's really a lot of fun. Many of you are aware of coming directly from other planets, and you know that you have that competence in you. But there are also a lot of people who have no idea because they've decided to go into the full human experience. But it's just love and fun. So don't be concerned about getting control and conflict and all of that. It's just one big fun game. And it's easier for us to work with our karma when we are lighthearted and when we take part in the fun. Again, you don't grow a garden because you have to, because you have ambitions. You love to nurture. You love to see the beauty. You love to interact with and see nature in action, and you have tremendous respect for that. And you then learn that whatever you do in your garden, you are not the one that make your flowers grow, right? You can facilitate and work with nature, but nature is everything. So you grow out of your stories that someone is in control, that power exists, because in your garden there is no such thing. You can facilitate that kind of balance and love and make everyone in all levels of life, and insects and birds and whatnot, feel welcome, and they can interact, and that is what creates the magic. So it's also having that attitude in our own lives and understand that this is really what the aliens are doing. All of these movies where aliens are portrayed as dangerous and harmful, that is the human mind, right? Because humans are aggressive, and so humans are displaying what humans would be like if they were aliens. But you would see that aliens that are human, they're healing, they're loving, and they're present, right? So all of that is just crap. It's more advanced life forms have higher consciousness, right? So try to open yourself to that. And again, understand that this life form belongs to that family of life forms. We are the same, and they are therefore extremely drawn to this life form, just like family members will care for their favorite child. Any other questions?
We have another question in the audience here.
Yeah, it was basically just a follow-up question because you talked about the beauty of this planet, that it will be almost like a moment, like yeah. So I was wondering, is this planet special if you look upon the whole galaxy, like in its beauty and the variety of life forms, or?
Like every planet is unique because they all go through their own evolution. So in that respect, absolutely every planet is unique. But it's not special. If this planet ceased to exist, there are like trillions of others, So it's not important, but it's just like when you grow a garden, it's special because it's yours. So it's that. When someone starts investing, it becomes special because you connect and becomes part of you. And remember that what is then happening on this planet is also an expression and an extension of the kind of alien cultures that are invested in this planet. So it's not just this life form doing and existing on its own. We and the whole organism of this planet is also an extension of their process, and that investment, that's what makes it special.
Okay, we have 2 questions from YouTube, more related to films and television. Hogne here in Norway wonders specifically how accurate Star Trek and Star Wars are, but he also asked specifically about Stargate, which portrays different Norse gods as actually alien individuals. And then Amanda specifically addresses 2001: A Space Odyssey, where she hears the message that humans are developed by aliens and we're part of an alien family. So she wonders specifically if aliens were involved in the making of that particular film.
Now, the first question was?
Star Wars, Star
Yes,
Trek,
right. I think like when it comes to Stargate, that technology exists. It's being used. So Stargate is basically that you have a kind of door, a gate, where you're able to walk to a different dimension or through a kind of wormhole. That technology exists. But when it comes to Star Wars and all of that, not very accurate. I still think that, of course, because beings are everywhere, we're not that different. So of course there will be histories and stories that I'm sure will have happened somewhere, right? But in general, it's more, what is important is how it has kind of primed the collective consciousness to the idea of like alien, not just life forms, but their presence in our consciousness, in our lives. And I think that's been the important part of it. Star Wars is definitely not historically accurate. Let's all hope. And the
2001: Space Odyssey.
Yes, right. Yes. Now, again, back to what I said about how aliens mostly work is to influence thoughts and ideas and the kind of activating a vibration that will be translated into concrete ideas and innovation. So it's more like that. So there are many kind of sci-fi movies that, like let's say the whole area of sci-fi has been developed by aliens. It's that space, right? And then it's up to humans to fantasize and make things. But if we think of that it has opened a space in the collective mind of humans, right? And looking at all possibilities and everything it can be in us becoming used to it. To the point, again, where aliens land in Las Vegas, nobody can, because, yeah, sure. I think I saw an episode and whatever, that was kind of like that, right? So the field of sci-fi has been kind of induced and nurtured by aliens to open up that space. And that's the purpose of it. Any more questions?
Well, we have one more online. Do we have any more in the audience? Okay, we'll take the one in the audience first.
So you talked about TV right now, and a lot of the young people today, they are more into fantasy with dragons and Dungeons and Dragons, and which is not very alien, but it's still in a fantasy world. Are they still connected to some of that, even though it's not wrapped like aliens as we normally think of alien?
It's also connected to interdimensional existence, which is also something that we're being opened to, because that will also follow. And we exist on many different types of dimensions. And again, in the world of physics, when it's just like scraping the surface, but it's beginning. And that will also open a door or into a whole new way of understanding our existence, just like the idea and the understanding of different planets and galaxies and life forms. So that serves the purpose of opening that, right? And stimulating imagination, because imagination is also important to create a kind of breeding ground for innovation, right? And often when you look at fantasy, it's not important in itself, but it can make the brain more imaginative and seeing like, oh, it could be something completely different, because it's the wonderful thing about fantasy, it's not based on this world, right? Often when it comes to innovation, humans have been very square because it's like improving what already is in existence. What is needed now is innovation that's being channeled. And when you open yourself to interdimensional existence, you say, oh, right, it can already exist somewhere else, right? You can fantasize, and then all of a sudden you get the idea. So the purpose is that, to open up the human imagination to be able to channel more and to gradually kind of open the door to interdimensional communication, because that will also happen over time.
Okay, our final question comes from online. You've kind of touched on it, but without directly saying anything. Nina wonders about the connection between aliens and the unfolding of the new paradigm.
Yeah. Now, what we often refer to as a new paradigm is that shift on the planet, and how humans will gradually be kind of lifted into a more advanced state. And it will not happen through humans being transported or lifted or someone saving us. It's simply that more advanced consciousness is incarnating as humans. And that is happening now. And yes, of course, aliens are definitely a part of it. Aliens have been part of every single step of human evolution, right? And it's important to understand this. And hopefully within the next few decades, archaeologists and historians and politicians will start to open up this field, and we can see it. It will become official. We will kind of rewrite our own human history. So of course, this shift is important, and aliens have been trying to facilitate this in different ways. Also, as we've been seeing through fantasy, sci-fi, and implanting ideas and innovations so we can accelerate, right? Because humans are running out of time if they want to save the planet. And they will, right? But we need to speed up. So when we lift the consciousness, it's basically also, think of it as a pyramid. Think of it as that, right? So the higher you go, the wider you can see, which means to see, you get access to contextual information. You see the bigger picture, and then you also understand more about yourself and how to navigate, because this is part of the disconnect in the human culture at this point. So this is happening, and yes, they're definitely kind of part of that in trying to assist in kind of lifting the human collective consciousness to a certain level, and then also be part of facilitating more of kind of their own incarnating on this planet, and thereby also being part of changing what a human is. So it's all happening, and it's all fun. Remember that as I said, a big part of human genetics are not from this planet. Humans have been manipulated and genetically modified, and this will be clear a few decades from now, I hope. But we are part of a wonderful co-creational journey, right? Although we are on a very small planet, very uncentrally located in this galaxy, we are part of a greater family. We're part of a kind of greater co-creation and a greater journey. And just try to open yourself to that this life form is a part of a bigger family. You are a part of a bigger family. Your journey is part of a bigger family. And it only serves one purpose. It's to help you unfold. But not just you, everyone. Not just humans, all life forms on this planet. And through that, being the garden, it's also part of all these alien cultures being here and their unfoldment. You see, this is again why nature is one. We all exist for the same reason. We're all basically on the same journey. It just has different expressions. And we need to be there for each other. And humans will have to learn to be present on this planet for other life forms than themselves. So I think part of the discipline that we can all apply is to try to go beyond the human self-centeredness. Try to care for other life forms beyond humans and your dogs. Try to care for insects and plants for real. And see, how can you facilitate a better quality of life for the insects in your life, for the birds and the animals and whatever you have in your life? How can you see that as part of your journey? How can you be more of a loving presence that make a difference to life around you? Right? This is what spiritual studies are about. It's not like, I want to be enlightened. Like, who the fuck cares? If enlightenment is anything, it's the complete absence of self-centeredness. It's being fully aware to all life around you and in you, and being a complete part of it. I mean, always wanting to nurture and love and uplift. And there's nothing stopping you from doing that and from being that. And this is the great human potential. And this is where the alien kind of wants to develop the human life form. But you have that potential in you as a human as well as a spiritual being. So if you truly want to uplift this planet, behave in an uplifted state. Try to grow out of self-centeredness. And just try this simple exercise. Decide to be no one. The first state of meditation is always to become no one. Because that's how we move out of self-centeredness. So try to meditate on being no one and open yourself to everything. What happens then in your brain is that your brain will start to connect. Your nervous system will be kind of recalibrated. And then in that state, you can more easily connect to the flow of life. That's also why when we look at our own problems in a state of meditation, we see them differently because they're not as important anymore. So try to actively become no one. And then try to interact with everything around you from a state of the absence of self-centeredness and fill that void with love. Fill that void with the oneness of life, the oneness of nature. And then see the purpose of you doing anything as expressions of love, so that whatever you do, it becomes a vehicle of love, so that when someone interacts with you, it's simply an excuse to give and experience love. Because there is nothing else. Behind everything, at some point, there is love. All the alien cultures know this. And this is why, again, they've been willing to invest themselves for 1 million years. When you're not self-centered, you care more about oneness. You care more about what we are together than what you are by yourself. So connecting to the alien presence is definitely going beyond your self-centeredness, but also this life form. Also this planet. Be a spiritual being of love. Be a presence of love. Let everything in your life be vehicles and manifestations that can transfer love from you to the world around you. Not because they deserve it. It's nothing like that. In a high consciousness, it's what you do. It's the only thing you do. And the more you vibrate this, the more you'll connect to the higher alien presence on this planet. This is where they want to bring us. And this is the potential. So with that, we end for tonight. And understand that all the alien cultures, they love you, they nurture you. And most likely, you used to be them.
Thank you, IKYA. Thank you to all of our alien support out there. Thank you all for joining us tonight for IKYA Live, world news from the spiritual perspective. And again, truly the only news program in the world giving you the opportunity to look at the events happening around you from a higher spiritual perspective and to really understand yourself and life differently. So we genuinely hope that you are able to see the world and yourself differently tonight. And so please share this episode with anyone who might benefit. And be sure to join us next Monday, also 19 o'clock, 7 o'clock p.m. Oslo time, next Monday evening for our next episode of IKYA Live. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, IKYA.official, and all of our social media, IKYA.official on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. But really, truly try to spread this teaching and this discussion so that we can gradually and continually lift our understanding and our global discussion of the events unfolding around us. So until then, thank you again for joining us. This is IKYA Live.